Hey, it's Mike, and this is an interview that I did with Mark Divine, who is a New York Times bestselling author of several books and who was a Navy SEAL for 11 years. He retired in 2011 as a commander, and along the way he founded NavySeals.com, which is a website for gear and kind of information about the SEALs. He's also the founder of SEALFIT, which is an interesting, I could say it's an exercise program, but it's a bit more than that. It's more about a lifestyle. He kind of takes maybe the fitness aspect of CrossFit type of workouts and then combines it with his own kind of unique views on mental toughness and discipline and drive and determination and a lot of the, I guess you could say, the kind of classic virtues that that we aspire to, or that we admire and we kind of aspire to develop in ourselves. And Mark's a very interesting guy. He's lived a very interesting life. He's seen a lot of stuff, experienced a lot of stuff. So I really enjoy getting his take on, overcoming obstacles in life and what it takes to really be effective and what it takes to not just build a body, but build a good life. So let's get to the interview. I think you're going to like him. All right. Hey, Mark, thanks again for, coming by, and I had you on the podcast. That went over really well, so I appreciate you taking the time to do the interview.
You bet, Mike. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. All right, so let's just jump right into it. So, part of getting fit is not so much the know-how. Like, a lot of people know what they have to do. You got to control what you're eating, and you got to exercise regularly and so forth. But kind of the idea of making a long-term kind of what can appear to be like a radical change of lifestyle is a bit intimidating to many people when they're first getting into, fitness, especially depending on where they're starting with their bodies. The bigger picture can be kind of overwhelming and can make it hard to start. What are some strategies that you like for kind of overcoming that initial, inertia, almost what you're trying to push against is what it feels like?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with just, how you frame the discussion, right, internally. Mm. And, keep in mind, I think for everyone listening, that nothing of value comes without some sort of resistance, right? Even a plane taking off is pushing against the wind until it gets up to a certain speed and the forces of gravity are overcome. It's very similar with training, right? So you're going to meet resistance, and to just appreciate that resistance, appreciate the strength and the confidence that you're gaining day by day, but not to get frustrated because, shortly down the road, that resistance starts to level off and then you begin to cruise, right? I'm sure you experienced that, Matt. Now, then you cruise and you plateau, and then you're going to have to push harder, meet more resistance to break through to another level. So a lot of it has to do with framing it in terms of understanding, the process of trying to, develop a new training regimen or a new program. You're going to have to expect that resistance and just to push against it a little bit. And then the second thing is to, this is really my philosophy that we espouse at SEALFIT, is that training, is as important to you in life as eating and sleeping. And those three, training, eating, and sleeping, provide the foundation for excellence in life. Mm. So if any one of them are weak, then it's like a three-legged stool that's got one of its legs broken, and you will fall over, or you will be less than you can be. Let's put it that way. Right. And so just to elevate in your own mind in terms of how you think about training, how you plan your schedule, the people you hang out with, the books you read, that training your body, mind, spirit is every bit as important as waking up in the morning and putting food in your body and going to bed at night and recovering and getting a nice restful sleep.
Yeah, no, I think the airplane metaphor is great and very, very. It gives a good little package of that. That is kind of how it is. In the beginning, it's very tough to get up in the air. And then once you're up and going, it's much easier to stay there. And then it's also, I totally agree on the point of making your training as important as everything else, and you're eating, you're resting. And I think part of getting there is you have to do it. It's hard to. You can't really don't waste too much time thinking about it, because you really you know what I'm saying, like the experience is so much different than how That's you might think it's going to be.
I love that, and it's so true. You got to kind of get out of your own way by getting out of your head and just starting. Everybody experiences some resistance when they enter a workout. So you have the long-term resistance that you got to fight against, but even the day-to-day resistance, it's just like, oh God, I'm fatigued, or maybe I just woke up and I'm not quite ready for this. But all you got to do is start moving your body. And so what I like to do, and I try to teach people, is start with the finest movements. And so we start with the breath, right? We start by deep breathing, and that is a physical action that really starts to charge your body up, and it kind of clears your mind of all the crap, and like, I don't really want to do this, and I'm not sure I can, I'm ready for this, and it's going to be hard, and your mind just gets clear of all that stuff. And then we start with light range of motion drills, which, start to work your joints and get the blood flowing and get the synovial fluid flowing. And then we start to do a little bit more dynamic. And then next thing you know, we're into the workout and everyone's having a great old time. Yeah. Oh, by the way, it really, really helps to train with a partner or with a team. And that's a big thing we push for with SEALFIT, is to find a training team, some accountability partners, and you just go at it together, because it's so much more fun, and you get further faster when you have that accountability of the team.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I've went long periods working out alone, and then went long periods working out with, one person or multiple people. And, I'm fine working out alone. I'm still going to do it, but it's definitely more enjoyable with more people. And then even to your other point there, I ran across it in a blog post somewhere I was reading, I don't know, just kind of jumping through different blogs. And there's this concept I ended up writing about it called mini habits, which speak to what you were talking about before, with just starting with simple little things. But that's a viable approach to really anything in life. Is you want to start working out? Well, don't overwhelm yourself with, that you're going to have to be in the gym so many hours every week and you have to do it for the rest of your life and blah, blah, blah. Just start with doing 10 push-ups a day. Just do 10 push-ups a day until that feels comfortable, until you know that you're never going to miss your 10 push-ups a day. And then maybe you make that 50 a day. And then maybe you get in the gym one day a week. And then maybe, and by building like that, these little mini habits that you can build up, you can really, change your entire lifestyle without getting beaten into, without running into the brick wall of resistance that just smashes your face in,
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's a classic technique of mental toughness. We have 4 primary techniques for developing mental toughness, which we call the Big Four. And one of them is micro goals, to chunk it down into these really bite-sized chunks. But all those chunks have to be linked to the broader goal, right?
Yes.
Otherwise you could be chunking goals and spinning in circles, So you got to ensure that you have the big vision of where you want to go, and then you chunk it down, into these little tiny bites that are actually pretty easy to accomplish, and you feel good about it, and they develop momentum, and pretty soon you look back and you're like, holy cow, I'm 3/4 of the way to that major goal, and it was easy because I just took this one little bite at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a powerful way to approach things. And, you, the listeners, certain people are maybe better in the beginning at taking on bigger chunks than others, but it doesn't matter how small. You have to start. Make it work for you. If you feel you can take on a little bit more, if you could start with 50 push-ups a day, then start there.
No, totally. I was talking to someone recently, and they work with clients who haven't done any physical activity in a long period of time. And so, what he said was, okay, what we're going to do is you're going to get off your butt and you're going to walk outside to the edge of the, curb. And then if you decide then to turn around and walk back in, that's a victory.
Yeah.
Chances are you're going to turn left and walk down the street, to the next block. And at that point, you can decide to turn around and come back in. But you may continue, right? And so don't think, okay, I don't want to go for a walk. Just walk out to the curb.
Yep.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Because once you're out there, you're like, shit, I've come this, I might as well go another 20 feet.
Yeah, totally. I ran across that same kind of concept in this mini habit thing where, like, do something for 10 minutes. It doesn't matter how much, but at the end of the 10 minutes, if you don't want to do it anymore, fine, don't do it. But just give it 10 minutes, and chances are when you're 10 minutes in, you're going to be like, it's not that bad. I might as well do some more.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's getting started, and that's kind of, that's the beginning. And then there's kind of staying the course, which is a different challenge and requires a bit of grit and mental toughness, like you were talking about, because, sometimes things go smoothly. And if we're talking about training, that means that your workouts are, you're making progress, you're feeling good, you're no injuries, or not even necessarily injuries, no nagging problems. Everything is just rolling. And then sometimes things are not going so well for, whatever random type of things that can happen. What do you find kind of helps you keep that mental edge and just moving through the tough spots and just being there for the long term?
Sure. Well, it helps to condition your mind for the long term. And what I mean by that is to really take an active role in training your mind to be optimistic, to have a positive relationship with the work that you're performing, that's getting you closer to the target, to surround yourself with people who are helping you, right? And you're helping them. So you're serving their needs, but they're serving your needs by keeping you on target, and motivating you when you feel down and you're not quite up for the task or whatnot. And so that's what we do at SEALFIT is we try to train those things rather than just talk about them as a platitude.
Right.
You say, okay, we're going to train your mind to be optimistic and positive, and we do that through visualization. We do that through a process that I call positivity, and we do that through harmonizing your autonomic nervous system through breath control. Mm-hmm. And those three things right there, they encapsulate the other three of the big four skills of mental toughness and resiliency, and they work together, right? Like a conductor, conducting a musical orchestra.
Can you give us a couple examples of what are some type of mental drills that a person could do?
Sure. Okay. So, when I teach this, I say the bridge into mental control is the breath. If you're in a shitstorm, workout or a firefight or something like that, if you're a warrior, there's really only one thing that you can control, and that's your breath. And when you're in control of your breath, then you can control your mind and your emotions. Every emotion is linked to your breath, a breath pattern, and your mental thoughts are actually linked to your breath pattern. So if you're feeling chaotic and you're breathing through your mouth with short, choppy breaths, then you're going to continue to feel chaotic and your mind's going to be out of control. Mm. As soon as you notice that through, first of all, we train to be able to immediately notice our breath patterns and come back to it like a really deep nostril breath. And that deep nostril breath then immediately starts to take control of our nervous system. So if we lengthen our exhale, we trigger our parasympathetic nervous system, which calms ourselves down. If we want to charge up, then we're going to do more like intense inhales, and we're going to hold our breath a little bit, and we're going to do shorter exhales. That'll charge ourselves up. But ultimately, what I teach initially is just to do a really balanced breath. I call it box breathing. And it's a ratio of 1-1-1-1. What I mean by that is you inhale to let's say a 4 count, whichever the count really depends upon your capacity to breathe, what we call threshold. And so for me, I'll do a breath capacity training, or a ratio of 1-1-1-1, where I'll inhale for a 10 count, hold my breath for a 10 count, exhale for a 10 count, then hold my breath for a 10 count. Most beginners will start with 4 or 3, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then that ratio of the inhale, the hold, the exhale, and the exhale hold being the same balances the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And if you imagine, again, back to if you've been training this and then all of a sudden you're in this firefight, again, metaphorically speaking for most of the listeners, but for, the spec ops guys and military guys, that's very real. You come back to this breath pattern. Now, if you're winded, you're not going to do the holds, or they're going to be very short. Like inhale, just short hold, and then exhale, short hold. And so the ratio will not matter as much, but what it'll do is it'll trigger that same response to balance the nervous system. And also it provides kind of like a micro meditation. Most meditations are actually concentration training in that you're actually focusing on something, whereas ultimately true meditation is not focusing on anything. You're just absorbed in, presence, or, there's different ways to describe it. So What it becomes is a concentration tool where your mind collapses to concentrate on the breathing. Now you're still aware of everything that's going around. The Navy SEAL is still aware of where the danger is coming from. He's scanning, looking for targets. But because he's got that deep, controlled breathing, his mind is able to radically focus on the breath. It's kind of like the hook. He's holding it there, holding the attention, and then he can focus on the target. So that's the first step, is the breath, and it's super, super powerful. And if you just practice that alone, you'd have extraordinary results. So then what we do is we link the breath to positivity. So you could start getting your mind or your breathing under control, but your mind could be like, holy shit, I'm fucked. I'm going to die. We're outnumbered 10-1. Your mind could be like having this crazy defeatist dialogue.
Right.
We call it feeding the fear wolf. And so the breath, because you start to control your mind, you're able to witness the dialogue, and then you immediately interdict all that negative talk, all that negative and fear-based language, and you redirect it to positive and powerful language. And it has a very dramatic energetic effect on your body. I have this saying that negativity destroys performance, and it's so true. And literally, you vibrate at a lower level, your performance starts to degrade, and you literally think yourself into failure.
Yeah.
So we got to think.
Anybody that's played competitive sports has experienced that for sure.
For sure, yeah, absolutely. And some people naturally do it based upon like the dialogue that happened in their family. If their parents were really positive, and but some people fight against it because they're their own worst nightmare, because they grew up with really negative environment, negative people, negative programming, and so if you're in that category, then this is something you absolutely must train out of you, and you do it through the repetition of practice, just like shooting hoops. You got to practice thinking positively, and then the imagery really is closely linked, because when we speak to ourselves, we also trigger emotions and imagery, and it can happen the other way around. An emotion can trigger an image and then a thought, or an image can trigger a thought and then an emotion. So they're really like three-headed beast.
Yeah,
and
all
so you
associated.
gotta take care of them all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. So that could be like, bringing it down to the person that is, let's say they blew their diet or something like that, or they missed a couple workouts or whatever, and they start getting that negative thoughts, and then maybe they start feeling anxious about like, what is this, they don't want to quit or whatever. Then that's a simple thing they can do, is get their breathing under control and just, I guess in a sense, almost force themselves to just think more positively. Huh? Yeah.
Right. We have some drills. So the box breathing is a drill. For positivity, we call it "What dog are you feeding?" drill. So we'll say, okay, listen, just set your alarm to ring every hour, and on the hour when it rings, just stop what you're doing and just check in and say, okay, am I, what's going through my mind? Is it positive? Does it feel positive? Is it negative? Am I engaged in fear-based thinking or gossip or anything that's negative? Does it feel negative? Is it pulling me down energetically? And if so, then you go through that process of, okay, stop that, called an interdiction statement. You stand up, take a few deep breaths, do some jumping jacks, smile, because your body gets in the game and gets more positive or more energized. You're going to feel better about yourself. And then you start talking to yourself, easy day, I got this, piece of cake. We're going to crush this. Or I'm a good person, and that was just a minor setback. I've got this. We're going to crush it.
Yeah.
Whatever dialogue works for you. And then what I'd like to do is I like to kind of, my insurance policy is to lock that new mental state in with like a jingle or a jody or a mantra. And the one I used in SEAL training, 20 some odd years ago, I still use to this day, and I say it hundreds of times a day, and it's feeling good, looking good, ought to be in Hollywood. Feeling good, looking good, ought to be in Hollywood. And so I can have a dialogue like this, and that is going, playing in my background mind, kind of like a little record.
Yeah.
And it just keeps my mind from, going into negative territory, because it's a meaningful statement to me,
Yeah, totally. I like that. So we're rolling along now, and getting over the little ups and downs, but then there are inevitably, just people being human or whatever, there are the inevitable just slip ups where completely fall off the wagon, let's say on the diet, or an injury happens, so then you can't train the way you want to train for a couple months or a couple weeks or whatever it is. That stuff, the listener is just saying, you can expect. No, I don't think you necessarily can say that you should expect injury, but you're going to have, not everything is going to be perfect all the time. You
Sure.
are going to end up, grossly overeating at some point for a little bit, and you're going to be like, oh, well, you're going to gain 2 pounds of fat or something you didn't want to gain, or,
Right.
You're going to deal with little muscle strains or nagging things that are going to get in the way and kind of be annoying. So that's not really the point, but the point is kind of like what happens next? What do you do in response? So like, what do you find? You kind of talked about this a little bit, but is there anything else that you can share? And what helps you from, cause, you start, it's avoiding that slippery slope effect of, well, fuck it. I already, what the hell? I already overate, yet one day, so I might as well do it again. I already missed one workout. I guess I'll just miss two more, avoiding that so you can just get back on track, put that stuff behind you and just get rolling again.
Yeah, well, there's a ton here that we could talk about, but first of all, failure is an event. It's not you. It's not a person. And in fact, we don't grow without failure. It's just such an important concept to get, is that the only way for us to grow and develop is to fail our way forward and to learn how to do it as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Right? So SEALs run toward the sound of gunfire and they trip and fall and they realize, okay, that direction is not going to work. So, we'll run toward the sound of gunfire in a slightly different direction. We fail all the time, but those little minor failures we learn from. We become learning machines. And so we're constantly learning how not to do things, how to do things better, until we literally fail our way toward overwhelming success. It's a radical concept. And we have this saying in the SEALs that failure is not an option. And a lot of people misunderstand it because they think, oh yeah, we're perfectionists. We can't fail. That's the opposite. What we mean is that because we're so comfortable with risk and with pushing the envelope and redlining things that we're always failing.
Yeah.
But we look at that failure as just another way to, a way to learn how to do it a little bit better. And we employ what we call the OODA loop. And so this is really cool for your listeners. So as you drive towards success, you receive a setback, right? Let's say it's a minor injury. Mm-hmm. Every time we have a minor injury or any type of injury in our SEALFIT training, we expect the athlete to show up the next day and to train. But we're going to obviously modify the workout, right? Yep. There's things you can do practically with any injury unless it's seriously debilitating. And then we'll put you on a training plan to get healthy really quickly, right? But, the bottom line is that failure is just a simple event that, provided valuable information on how you need to adjust your training plan, or, some way you were moving improperly, or you were not being very aware and, you dropped a kettlebell on your foot or something like that, so it's something you're not going to do again. So we learn from it. So the OODA loop is an acronym for observe, orient, decide, and act. So you observe what happened. You observe your new situation. Like, let's say I got injured. I had I broke my wrist. This happened to me a few years ago. I broke my wrist on a box jump because I wasn't really paying attention. And when it came down, I slipped off the box and smacked my hand on the cement. And so I observed, very quickly that it was broken. I observed that, I wasn't going to be able to use my left hand. The next day, I went and got an x-ray and sure enough it was broken. So I took care of that, immediate triage. And then I started to reorient myself. So the second O is to orient myself to the new situation. And so my orientation said, okay, broken hand, that means my left hand is out of the game. But what can I do with one hand? Well, I can do one-hand burpees. I can still row. I can work on my one-hand pull-ups. I can do a lot of snatches. I'm going to be a little unbalanced while this left arm, heals, but I'm still going to train.
Yeah, I did the same thing. Years ago, I fractured my wrist playing football, and it was the same. I'm like, well, my training's going to be a little bit goofy, but I'm going to keep going.
Keep going, and you heal so much faster. You heal at least twice as fast, I think, when you keep going, because you're in the game mentally, and you're feeling good, moving the blood, and you're basically...
My cast didn't smell too good, though.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, neither did mine, but it didn't matter, right? So that's the OODA loop. Then you decide, you make a decision. How am I going to alter my training plan? Okay, I'm going to do these 3 things. I'm not going to do those 10. And then you make that decision and then you act on it. That's the OODA loop. And it's super powerful because it allows you to really overcome the setbacks very quickly, which is really the essence of resiliency. Is like to fall down 7 times, get up 8 with a smile on your face. Because every time you experience that setback, you observe what happened, you learn from it, you reorient yourself to the new reality, you make a new decision that's powerful and forceful and is going to move you closer to your target, and then you act. And then you just keep on rolling forward until you hit the next, point of resistance.
Yeah, I like that. Because it lets you disassociate the emotion of failing and kind of push through that quickly and stick to the positive, which is, well, you can keep on moving in the right direction. Maybe be a little bit slower. Maybe you have to take a detour, but at least you're moving, as opposed to now you're stopped, and then you're really going to get taken over by the negative of it all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. One last thing I wanted to get your wisdom on is, so when it comes to getting and staying healthy and fit, the ultimate goal is, I think, to I guess kind of approach that state of flow, I guess psychologists would call it, right? Kind of where you're energized and you're focused on your goals and you're fully kind of enjoying the process. Mm-hmm. And I guess it even come back to, like you were saying, there's a bit of a presence there where,
right.
You are not, you're not overwhelmed by the bigger picture. You're not worried about your past failures. You're just in it and you're going. And, based on your story of how you became a Navy SEAL, I suspect a bit of something about reaching that type of state, and I wanted to get your
Sure.
input on it.
Well, a flow state will happen naturally when you're highly trained in a skill. Let's say you're a bodybuilder or you're, into strength training and you're highly trained at the movements of strength training and you're in terrific shape and you put in thousands of hours,
Yeah.
And so what happens when you're that trained in something is when you actually perform the act and you're pushing the envelope. Let's say you're going for a new PR or a new benchmark, and so that you set the target slightly above your last effort, meaning you're shooting for something that you haven't attained before.
Yeah.
And so it collapses your focus to like everything you've got is going into this effort, and your mind like literally shuts out all other activity. It brings all that training to bear. So you're acting with an instinctual intelligence, and you're reaching for that goal. And in those moments of effort, whether it's extraordinary effort on a playing field or going for a new PR on a bench press, you click into this altered state of reality that we call the flow state, where you feel this extraordinary kind of peace. Time seems to kind of come under your control or slow down, and everything just seems to flow out of you perfectly. The Japanese have a word called shibumi, which is effortless perfection, and that's really a great word to kind of describe this feeling. So what I like to teach in my SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind programs is that if we make the skill that we perfect our own accelerated learning, then we can learn to activate this flow state at will. We don't have to just hope it shows up at the moment of need, in the
right.
act, right? So what I mean by that, instead of spending, you will spend thousands of hours doing something you love to do, some sort of skill, but what we like to do is spend thousands of hours on the skill of basically our own mastery, right?
Right.
And so that's why what we do is we train every day, not just to be physically strong, but to be mentally alert and focused, emotionally controlled, and, to be able to access the depth and range of our emotions, to be intuitively, present, and to tap into our willpower or our warrior spirit. And we train these things together every day. And when you train in an integrated fashion like that, where you look at your whole mind-body-spirit system as one whole that can't be separated into its parts, then all of a sudden you start to unlock this accelerated growth, and you begin to be able to, manipulate reality so that you can access this flow state very quickly. And the big four skills that I referenced earlier really become the tools that you just immediately click back into: the breath, the positivity, the visualization, and the micro goals, and you become radically focused in the present moment, and you enter that flow state. It's very cool. It takes some training, but I have folks who've been working with me for they experience this with just like 2 to 3 months of training.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that for sure. That a lot of there are almost subconscious lessons that you're going to learn if you are training regularly and you are approaching it in the way that you're talking about. Right. You're going to learn certain things that it's going to affect you subconsciously, whether you like it or not.
Absolutely.
And you're going to be taking that into other areas of your life. When you want to go tackle something else, what it's like to do something with 100% focus on it, 100% intention, with an intention to get somewhere.
Right.
I can definitely relate to that.
That word is so good because what most people focus on is the attention, is the object of what of where your attention is focused. And intention is that internal focus. And so when you merge intention and attention, that's when you merge subject and object, and that's when you experience that flow where there's no separation between you, the doer, and the doing, with basically a thought. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Thought isn't interrupting that, so it feels merged, and that's what that flow state feels like. It feels like there's, you're just doing. You're not thinking about doing and then doing. You're just doing, and it's flowing out of you.
Yeah, and
cool
with
stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. With that comes a lot of, then you build up self-confidence. You just where you can do it in the gym, and then you see you can do it somewhere else in your life, and then all of a sudden things that maybe seemed completely ridiculous or audacious to you in the past now you start to instinctively start breaking those down in the same way of like, well,
Sure.
actually, how could you go about that? You could break it all down here. You could get started on that. So it's definitely one of the cool things.
I mean, that's how you can write 2 books, in 6 months, and I wrote 3 books in 1 year, and we can run multiple businesses and stuff like that. Is because we treat our own selves as a lifelong project of mastery, and so we're able to stay radically focused and accomplish a lot more. And everyone's got this skill. It's just you just got to practice it.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, awesome. Well, those were the big things I wanted to cover.
Right.
So tell me, what's on your plate these days? I want the listeners to know a bit about what you're doing and what you have coming up. And
well, I'm totally excited for 2015. So we got a lot of momentum with SEALFIT. We got a lot of new events coming out. The events that I'm really excited about is our 3-day academy, where we bring people out to SEALFIT for 3 days. And it's really an entry-level academy, but it doesn't mean it's easy by any stretch of the imagination. It just means we don't have the same performance standards as like our other end of the spectrum, which is the Kokoro camp.
Yep.
Our nonstop, Hell Week, simulation. So we got a lot more of those 3 days academies. We got 5 Kokoro camps coming. We've got a bunch of our 20X events rolling out, which are essentially 12-hour crucible training events, and all these are really designed to help you explore the vast potential that we've been talking about in this show, And then I'm excited to kind of relaunch the next version or iteration of my Unbeatable Mind book. I just finished writing it, and so I'm going to relaunch that in January.
Nice.
And I'm writing a new book called Warrior Yoga, which is the integrated training from the yoga perspective that I teach the SEALs and the special ops candidates. So that's Macmillan is publishing that. It'll be due out in either the end of next year or January of 2016. So lots going on, really fun stuff.
Yeah, awesome. And people can find you and your work at, I guess your main website would be SEALFIT.com and then unbeatablemind.com. Those are your 2 websites, right?
Those are the 2. And SEALFIT.com is the more exciting one. We got tons and tons of videos and great content there. And Unbeatable Mind is our online training academy, which, if someone's really interested in learning the skills of mental toughness, emotional resiliency, and developing warrior spirit, then just enrolling in the online Unbeatable Mind Academy is an amazing experience. And I have, about 1,500 to 2,000 people enrolled, and they love it. And it's a 12-month program. It follows on into advanced training after that, but the core is this 12-month program. You get lessons every month, and the lessons are rich in content. There's a Word document that I've written with each one, and then videos and audio, and it kind of ties all the philosophy of Unbeatable Mind that I introduced in my book together into a training program that is integrative in nature and works on the physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and spiritual aspects of yourself, and to develop self-mastery and service, essentially, is the model. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks a lot for taking the time, Mark. I appreciate it. And you, the listener, definitely go check out Mark's stuff. I recommended his books on my website. That's how I came across him originally, and I like, obviously, interesting dude, has a lot of insight, and very cool. So go check his stuff out.
Thanks, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Booyah.